Welcome to the City of Mesa's Community of Colors Forum. My name is Councilmember David Luna, and today we've assembled a great panel of guests from the Mesa community, as well as Mesa Police Chief Ken Koss and City of Mesa's Diversity Administrator Andrea Reed, to discuss the importance of diversity in our community and the programs that the City of Mesa has in place to embrace and help celebrate our differences here in the City of Mesa. Our forum participants include Vic Reed, CEO of the Asian Chamber of Commerce, Ron Williams, Chairman of the City of Mesa's Human Relations Advisory Board, and President of the Arizona Foundation and Chair of the Arizona MLK Planning Committee, Albert Puli, President and Founder of the Native American Fatherhood and Families Association, Deanna Viano, Chair of the Mesa Association of Hispanic Citizens, and hopefully we're hoping that Mohammed Al-Shakawi can join us. He's Chairman of the Arizona Muslim Police Advisory Board. Thank you so much, all of you, for being part of this wonderful conversation. So we're going to kick it off with Vic Reed, who is here today representing the Asian Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Vic, for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Councilman. I definitely appreciate you guys having me on this forum today. There's obviously a lot that's currently going on in the world that we'd love to sit down and discuss as much as possible. A little bit about myself. I've taken over the Asian Chamber roughly 3 years ago. We've worked very closely with Mesa in the past year on not only the rebranding, but the launching of the Asian District, where we have brought in our night market that's been very, very successful. We've seen in the past 3 years through our night market, $250,000 going back into our community, which has been tremendous. Obviously, I have just a few questions that I want to talk about. I know on the previous forum that you guys had last week, you touched on a lot that's currently going on, and I definitely appreciate that. First and foremost, what we're dealing with in the Asian community is obviously the racism and ignorance that has come because of COVID-19 and some of our leadership deciding to say things like the Chinese virus. In reality, we have dealt with a lot of ignorant calls and racism in regard to that. The truth is, no one's willing to really take the time and differentiate between Asian countries, so they kind of lump us into the same general categories. So we have fielded a bunch of calls in regards to why are we bringing the virus, and just really ignorant statements. And I'd love to see Mesa tackle that, and I know that that City Council has been very prepared to assist with the Asian community. One question that I had, and this is just kind of start of questions, is we're seeing record highs in COVID-19 every single day, right? And so we had a shutdown, and since the reopening, we have hit records. What is the plan moving forward? I know we were caught off guard the first time around, but I would hope that, you know, the city has learned from that, and we're establishing certain protocols to ensure that small businesses aren't going to be left behind. We know that just recently that $90 million was awarded through the CARES Act to Mesa, where $50 million of that is going directly to public safety. I just want to ask why. What exactly is that money being utilized for, and why is not more money going into small businesses? We have worked with Mesa on the Small Business Reemergence Program. I'd love to see that reopened and some more assets going that way, because the reality is we had 2 weeks to kind of promote it and try to grab as many small businesses as possible. That wasn't nearly enough, right? And so the biggest thing that we saw is there needs to be more boots on the ground, right? And actual community organizations reaching out to small businesses. And I appreciate everything that Mesa has done in that regards, but there needs to be more work, especially for, you know, the different communities that have a lack of language access. Secondly, what is Mesa doing to not just passively, but actively combat systematic oppression and racism? What policies and what reforms are actually coming about? The biggest thing is private prisons. Why are we incentivizing incarceration, right? And another thing that we're seeing is a lack of people of color in department-wide throughout Mesa. how do we go about actually solving that and getting more people of color into positions where they have a seat at the table and can actually discuss a lot of these issues? And then last, I just wanted to bring up the idea of a community review board. Has that been discussed for the police department? If so, what does that look like at this moment?
Vic, thank you so much for those are very good questions. So I'm going to refer these questions to Andrea, if she could speak to what the city of Mesa is doing relative to those questions that Vic Reed has asked, as well as our police chief to speak to the funding going to public safety. So we'll start with Andrea.
Thank you, Councilmember Luna, and thank you, Mr. Reed, for those very thoughtful questions. I certainly am not able to address them all, as definitely there is policy level decisions that are both ran through our city management's office and through our mayor and council as well. But what I can do is let you know that my role as the diversity administrator, and this role was recently elevated and appointed, in which I took the position in March. So in that short period of time, particularly with our COVID-19 citywide response and our response through the Mesa Cares program, the diversity office and our community engagement office has had a seat at the table from the very start. And I think that's evident in how we had been working directly with economic development in ensuring that services such as translation and interpretation at the start of any program that we had rolled out under the Mesa Cares umbrella, such as the Economic Development Small Business Reemergence Program, the Technical Assistance Program, our Feeding Mesa programs, all of those have had the assistance of ensuring that we are reaching our most vulnerable populations, those that have the need for alternative formats, whether that is through language, whether that's through accessibility. So I feel that one effort that we did achieve in beginning this inclusion process in our city management level was evident in just a few short months in that I have been in this position, is that the importance of this is definitely getting a much greater spotlight now that we are having a severe amount of our Masons in various needs. So I do commend the questions that you asked, and certainly do see that there is going to be some changes in how the city implements its programs and services with that diversity and community engagement model at the forefront. And I look forward to being in the position now of being able to work very closely with our city manager. So the new position that I'm in has been elevated, in which I do have direct relations now with our city management, assistant and deputy city management, as well as working directly with our HR director and all other directors within the city, and being able to help make sure that this, the effort of diversity, the effort of community engagement, how we outreach and connect with our Mesa citizens and our public is not something that is just solely launched within one department, but that is the responsibility of all departments at forefront. So I certainly look forward to being able to include more of that in the future, and appreciate your question in how we can best put those efforts in addition to the Mesa Cares dollars that are going out.
Thank you, Andrea. Now I'm going to pivot and ask our chief to speak relative to the funding that's going to public safety. Now, the funding that we did receive from the federal government has to be COVID related. Can you speak to the question that Mr. Reed presented?
Sure. Good afternoon. It's good to see you, even in a virtual sense. So let me talk a little bit about the community review panel that you asked about. In addition to the funding question. Reference the community review, Mesa has had a use of force review panel for several years. We've just improved that. We call it a critical incident review board. So it's not just, it broadens the cases that review board looks at. So it's not just subject matter experts within our own department. It includes community members. And those community members go through a process to where they get a little bit of training, a little bit of education on what the police department does. They go through that. It's a vetting process, so anybody can put in to go do that, but you just have to go through a series of training to get to that point. And they are on that panel, and they are looking at what we do. We give them access to all the reports, any video, any evidence, anything that our subject matter experts internally look at, they do as well. So we have that board. It's been stood up, and we've just improved it. The other thing that we just got done wrapping up is a use of force review and implementation committee. So for over 9 months, we took 66 recommendations from the Police Executive Research Forum, which is not tied to a police department, and we opened up our policies and procedures to them to look at for review, and they gave us a comprehensive report on things that they would like to see reviewed for our policies. So instead of just making those policy changes in a vacuum, we opened up those policies and procedures to the community, and for every other Wednesday, for 2 hours a day, that group met. So it was a series of community members and also from the academic community that did that. They just wrapped that up. It's a 9-month process. I could do an hour show just on that. So I know I don't have that much time. As far as the funding goes, all funding has to be COVID related. I'll tell you, between the police department and the fire department, from the beginning of March until now, the amount of effort that we put in to make sure that not just our folks, but the community are safe, and ensuring that safety has been tremendous. So obviously there's a cost of that. As far as how it's divvied up and the CARES funding, that's beyond my pay grade. That is something that's beyond the police department, and you know, a question better served for city management or another venue.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate your responding to that question. Next, we're going to introduce Mr. Ron Williams. He is chair of the City of Mesa's Human Relations Advisory Board. It's a pleasure to have you, Ron. Thank you. Please share your feelings, sentiments relative to what's occurring here in the City of Mesa, as well as the nation.
Well, first, thank you, Councilman Luna and Police Call for inviting me to participate in this very important Communities of Colors Forum. A little bit about my background. I'm a proud 19-year Mesa resident. First, let me share that this is my complete and humble honor to serve as chairman of the Mesa Human Relations Advisory Board, whose mission is to create an inclusive, respectful, and equitable community. And although I've had the great honor to serve on the Mesa's MLK Committee in an expanded role, I serve as chairman of the Arizona MLK Celebrations Committee Events and Activities. And I've served on that committee for over 18 years now, which activities encompass the greater Phoenix metropolitan area throughout the valley. My diverse background includes service in the United States Air Force as a Desert Storm era veteran. I moved to Arizona in 1985 and just never left. I've successfully ran 3 statewide business development agencies and currently own multiple small businesses, one of which is a restaurant at the airport, Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, that is currently closed due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, while working at the City of Phoenix for 4 years, I oversaw several diversity programs as the liaison to the Mayor's Human Relations Commission. Those programs included Race Equality Day, as well as the Faces of Diversity programs held in the City Council chambers. And during that time, once a month, we took an audience on a cultural journey designed to open their eyes and expand their mind and stir their spirit. The series focused really, the series featured dynamic people telling their stories about diversity in their country or community. The speakers range from community activists, civil rights experts, and human services professionals to artists, authors, poets, and others around the world. The program was basically designed to promote the value of cultural diversity and create opportunities for positive exchange among diverse groups. I think it's a program Mesa should consider creating, and I'll be more than willing to help with that. Some of the work I currently do as president of the Arizona Foundation that is pertinent to today's discussion is about our bridge forums that we've conducted over the last 5 years. And I want to give kudos to the creator of the bridge forums, which are Alan A.P. Powell and Aaron Baer, who are also the founders of the Arizona Foundation. So in short, the bridge forums are an exclusive panel of police chiefs participating in a forum connecting community engagement with police professionals. What results is a plan of action that can be immediately implemented as it has been in other municipalities in the valley. We've had support and participation from the governors, local mayors, attorney generals, and other elected officials. The forums are designed to initiate and continue a dialogue with law enforcement and the communities they serve. Through the magic of TV, videos, and social media, we've all seen the disturbing images of police brutality, excessive force, and the shooting and killing of unarmed African-American males throughout the country. Now, I say African-American because that is the perspective I'm sharing today. But we know that it has been happening to our Latino, Native Americans, Asian, and other communities of color. The forums are not designed to vilify all police officers for the failure of a few rogue cops. They're also not designed to excuse the actions of those that jeopardize the safety of our police and communities alike. They provide an environment to engage in civil dialogue about bridging the gap between police and community, knowing that police can't be successful at their job of protecting the community without the support of the community. And likewise, the communities would not experience the safety they need and deserve without the police. Now, having said all of that, we know that the systemic racism that has been created over the last 400 years is going to take an ongoing and consistent effort daily, monthly, and yearly to help our country heal to get to a place of respect and civility. The African-American community has been patient, being told decade after decade to keep hope alive and pray that it will get better. Well, quite frankly, we know that that hasn't worked. So the African-American community is simply done waiting. With the events we've seen around the world, I feel that some important challenges will need to be acted on swiftly. Otherwise, we may see more of what we've experienced over the last month. The subject of the looting and the rioting is a whole different conversation, but the peaceful protests have allowed African-American communities to finally be heard. I've seen grown men cry, myself included, just over the possibility that change may finally come and that African Americans and all people of color may finally be treated like human beings. You see, we know that when the Constitution of the United States was written in 1787, African Americans were not recognized as a full human being, only 3/5 of a human, I believe. So in 2020, we just want to be recognized as a full human being and treated as such. The Arizona Foundation stands ready to assist the city as well as the dedicated members of the Mesa Human Relations Advisory Board. And with that, as far as a question is concerned, I'll just pose this to Police Chief Ken Cost regarding, and Chief and I have had ongoing dialogue about this. So I'll share this for our viewing audience for this particular session. Chief, when recruiting, would you say that Mesa PD have processes in place to ensure that you're not recruiting and bringing into your ranks problem officers that have transferred from other municipalities with a bad record of complaints and or have been fired or resigned under suspicious circumstances?
Yes, sir. It's good to see you. Yeah, exactly. Anybody that's coming into our department is called a lateral transfer officer. And so they go through the exact same scrutiny as if we're hiring somebody that has never been an officer. So they go through that same rigorous process that we have for somebody that's coming on. We don't simply say, you were a police officer in, XYZ police department, and therefore you're good. Go ahead and just submit your application and we'll bring you over. We do extensive background checks on folks that are coming in, to include talking to like a 360 review where we talk to other members of that department, members of the community that they work in, neighbors, friends, family, to kind of get a really good overview of exactly what kind of person we're bringing into our organization. Do we get it perfect every single time? I can't sit here and tell you that we're perfect, but we work awful hard to make sure that we're not bringing somebody in that's had issues in another agency, then for us just to absorb those same issues. We don't want that. Our community deserves better, and we make an awful intentional effort to make sure that that does not happen.
Thank you, Chief Cost. Well, again, Councilman Luna, Chief Cost, just know that the community is ready to be part of the solution. And if there are no questions for me, again, I want to thank you, Councilman Luna, for the opportunity to share my perspective, and I look forward to listening in on the perspectives of our other panel members. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. I really appreciate all the work that you've done with the Human Relations Advisory Board, and I know that you will continue to do that as you move forward. And thank you for your participation in this forum as well. Now we're going to our next guest, that's Albert Puli, who is president and founder of the Native American Fatherhood and Families Association. Albert, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of you for your presence, and I'd like to thank you invited me to this forum. Let me tell you a little bit about who I am and what we do here. We're called the Native American Fatherhood and Family Association. We actually are a national organization. We work with over 240 tribes throughout the country. And our main offices are here in Mesa on Mesa Drive and University. And we work with most all the tribes in Arizona, and of course, a lot of the urban Indians here in Arizona. We've had, up to this point, we've had a very good relationships because we actually reach out to the different police departments throughout the whole valley, the city of Phoenix, Chandler, Mesa, Scottsdale, Gilbert, you name it. We have actually reached out to them because we have a lot of our Native American men and women who are incarcerated, who are either in tribal jails, municipal or county jails, state prisons, and federal prisons. In fact, there's a lot of an abundance of Native Americans in federal prisons because if there's a crime committed on the federal Indian reservation, the federal government comes in and takes him off to federal prison. So we have a lot of Native men and women who are in federal prisons. That's why we have reached out a lot. We've had a good reception. I want to say that we've had a good reception with the police departments and also the courts here in Mesa. We work with the court system. They've been very cooperative with us. I think when they learn what we're doing and why we want to do it that way, they've been very responsive to us. We haven't had any problems with them. We work with a lot of tribes in Arizona. And like I said, the whole thrust of our program is to strengthen families and keep families together. That's our whole thing because we say the heart of our Native American people is family. It's family. And what are we doing to strengthen families? Sometimes you want to look at the whole system. They call it systemic racism. Well, let's work with the families so families can learn how to deal. Because I tell my fathers and mothers who come through our program, I say, you know what? You're going to run into jerks all of your life. There's a lot of Caucasian jerks. There's a lot of black jerks. There's a lot of Hispanic jerks, a lot of Asian jerks. And yes, we have our share of Native American jerks. I want our fathers and mothers to learn how to navigate through these different people that give them a hard time. Some of the biggest jerks you're going to run into are called family and friends. You start changing your life, people want to bring you back down. So we say, let's work with you and teach you how to work the system. And we have events here where we have some of our fathers who've been in prison. They have events with some of the police officers where they were really terrified of the police. Now they do things with them. How do they relate to the non-native world? So we've taken the initiative on our part to really educate our people because we said, let me give an example. In 2015, the Native American population was only 1/10 of the population of the United States. In the whole world, we're only 0.03% of the population. We're just a drop in the bucket. And so we're going to have to teach our people how to relate to all kinds of people. And so we say, let's strengthen our families so we can do that. That's really our thrust here in this program, because you're going to have racism. It's been around since the day of man here. It's going to go on into the end of the world whenever that comes. So we try to make our people really become aware of how do you best work with the people. And so we've taken a different approach. We're working with people here. One of the things when it comes to the virus issues we've had, Native people have really particularly up on the Navajo Indian reservation. That's where I'm half Navajo and I'm half Hopi, and they've had their share of this virus problem. And in fact, where I'm from is called Lower Greasewood, Arizona. There's been 3 people in the past few weeks just in our community that have passed away, and so of this virus. So we've been here involved in our program to get our people, to get some of the men and women here we were involved in a food drive here about 2 weeks ago. We're gonna be another food drive here in next week. So we're being very proactive. I'd like to have all the agencies realize that they can reach out to us. We've told the police department, reach out to us, because a lot of the officers, we've found out that they have a tough job. They have a tough job, and we've been trying to arrange ride-alongs with some of our fathers with different departments, and we got to have an appreciation for that. And so we say, that we want to tell the agencies, and I wish if the chief is listening to us, come and visit us. We want to help you in any way we can, because when you educate the law enforcement, we've found out that they really, really want to help. You do have a bad apples in a few ends, but that's okay. We understand that, but we've found it. That's why we have had so much good response. Once we reach out to them, they know that we are very serious. So we haven't taken the victim role. We've taken, what can we do as an agency, as a people, to help out these agencies that are supposed to be serving our people? I see my time is up, so that's who I am.
Thank you, Mr. Puli. We appreciate you participating in this forum, and we look forward to working with you in the future. And I'm sure the chief of police does as well. Next,
can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing?
Go ahead.
Like we now have a partnership with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce to do some things. So they're working out wonderful with us too, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So, but we have reached out to so many agencies ourselves, as opposed to waiting for people to come and see us.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Puli. Appreciate it. Next, my good friend of mine, Deanna Viano Salcedo, who is the chair of the Mesa Association of Hispanic Citizens, is here to join us today to talk to us about areas of inclusion and diversity in the city of Mesa. Welcome, Deanna.
Thank you so much for having me on the forum. I appreciate the City of Mesa putting together times like this. I hope that this is one of many future discussions, because the issues that we're grappling with really deserve a lot of time and attention, and we need to be in it for the long haul, just not for an immediate crisis. I want to also thank the other panelists for sharing their perspective. I think ideally, the more perspectives we have around the table, the better our solutions are when we're looking at critical problems. So again, the more we can bring voices together from various perspectives, I think we'll be in for greater change and more positive change. I'm lucky enough to chair the Mesa Association of Hispanic Citizens. That's an advocacy-based organization here in Mesa promoting positive public policies that benefit our community in general, Hispanic community specifically. The agency has been around more than 30 years, collaborating with our school district, our community college district, and the city, again, to create positive change. And there's 2 points that I really hope that we can come away with today. One, our group has been very adamant about rejecting false dichotomies. And I think that only serves to divide our country and our community even further. It is possible to appreciate the good work of our public safety officials who have partnered with us, providing information in English, Spanish to critical families who are facing at-risk situations. We have seen them work with our immigrant community, easing fears when they were being afraid of being swept up in raids under a prior county sheriff. We have seen the work that they've done with U visas and our immigrant community facing who are victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. We can appreciate all that work while still calling for increased transparency and accountability. The two can coexist, and I think we need to be very clear about that and continue collaborating around that work. The Mesa Association of Hispanic Citizens called for reinstatement of the diversity officer position, that would be a full-time position, dedicated time working on these issues. We appreciate the city's response to that. We will continue to push, however, to make sure that Andrea has the appropriate tools and resources to effectively carry out those functions. So again, the more we can reject those false dichotomies and appreciate the good while still working toward improvement, again, I think that's a long-term strategy that we really need to uphold. The second is, let's not waste a strategic opportunity. COVID, coupled with our social unrest, provides us with unique opportunities to rethink how we do business. And personally, I reject the notion that we have to go back to normal. Normal was not serving many of our communities well. If you look at the communities represented on the panel today, we are looking at economic challenges, educational disparities, health disparities. Normal was not working for many, many segments of our community. So this notion that we're just going to come out of the pandemic and come out of this recession as a result of the pandemic and go back to normal just cannot happen. We have to seize this opportunity and really work toward long-term policy solutions. Some of the questions that I will pose and some of the comments obviously won't be answered today. I think, again, it takes long-term strategic thinking. But again, how do we not return to a normal but an improved state of being? We've seen great work with Mesa Fire and Medical Department rethinking how they deliver services, particularly with medical calls, and really changing the model, the number of personnel. Maybe it's time that we look at PD and say, how can we rethink those models, because our police officers are facing an incredible burden. They are asked to deal with social service ills, domestic violence, people facing mental health crisis, and maybe there are some other ways to look at those models. So how do we rethink that? And how do we as a community rethink our budget priorities? We're coming out of a recession. We still don't know how much the city is going to be facing in terms of a loss because of loss of revenue and a reliance on sales tax. I have to remind those listening today, Mesa doesn't have a primary sales tax, or primary property tax. We are overly reliant on sales tax. We don't know long-term what that economic devastation is going to be. So given the funds that we have available, what are our community's priorities? That takes dialogue and that takes real work. So one around tools, one around budget. Why is there not a living data dashboard to take a look at City of Mesa staffing demographics? Not just within the police department, but within our entire city structure. What do those demographics look like? What is the terms of service? What are the different people represented? And how do we disaggregate that data to look at where leadership is? We may be able to count a whole lot of communities of color represented in certain job sectors, but is that reflected in leadership? So where is that data and how is that data made available? So again, we can have long-term discussions about where the city prioritizes diversity. The other is, and it goes back to the first Communities of Color Forum that took place, culture within the police department. We've had some amazing leaders who value community engagement and who value diversity, and we've also had some struggles, and that needs to be acknowledged. How is it that the culture and people are brought in and brought on the same bus with a primary culture of service and community engagement? And again, that's something that goes even beyond the police department. How is it that everybody is held accountable to community engagement? How is it that that perhaps could be reflected in employee evaluations, particularly those in director level positions and positions of leadership? What are they doing to promote those same values within their department? And how is it that they are working with their community toward better solutions? The other is a social safety net. We are really blessed in this community with a strong nonprofit sector. How do we effectively partner with them to provide those social services that frankly we can't keep dumping upon just our police officers, just public safety, just educators in our community? Where is the collective voice and where is the collective response to providing a solid social safety net for our community? Those are just a few thoughts. I know those are a lot of questions to put on the table, but again, I'd like to reemphasize that we have to be, as a community, in this for the long haul. And again, it takes more than just acting upon an immediate crisis. It really is, how do we look to the future around budget discussions, rethinking how services are delivered, looking at demographic data for city leadership, holding people accountable to community engagement, re-engaging those discussions around civilian oversight and review. A few thoughts for your consideration.
Thank you, Deanna. Those are great points, and I think those are points that we are going to take with us. Andrea is, I'm sure she's taking copious notes in terms of how we move forward. It is a changing time. We can't revert to what was in the past. We need to begin looking at new models and how we begin to deliver services to our community, and certainly recognizing our communities of color, because that's something that's essential as we move forward as a community. So thank you so much, Deanna. I appreciate that. Our next guest, thank you, Mohammed. You were able to join us. I appreciate you being here. He's the representative of the Arizona Muslim Police Advisory Board, and it's a pleasure to have you here joining us. How can the Muslim community work with the city of Mesa as it relates to our police department? I know that you've been very active with that. Speak to us on that. Mohammed, we can't hear you.
All right, had
Okay.
unmute. Sorry,
That's
because
okay.
I am using my phone. For some reason, the computer didn't allow me to join in the meeting. That's why I'm joining through the phone, standing by the window. Thank you again for inviting me and making us part of this initiative. We, as Arizona Muslim Police Advisory Board, had formed this board right after 9/11 because of the backlash that we, as a Muslim, were having because of 9/11. And basically, what happened is the police department did not know where are the places of worship for the Muslim community, what they do there. They did not know much about the Muslim community, not in just in Arizona, not in Phoenix or Mesa, it was in Arizona as a whole. So we formed this board to kind of be a partnership with law enforcement. And since the inception, we've been holding meeting with law enforcement, and we've been, this meeting been so fruitful for both sides because we diffuse so many scenarios that would have been risen up because of miscommunication or misunderstanding between us and the different police department. One thing I wanted to mention that the Muslim community in Arizona, or actually the Muslim community in the United States in general, is the most diverse of the diverse community, if I can put it this way. Our Muslim community include Hispanic, African American, Caucasian, Chinese, Indian, you name it, even some Native American. We have a Native American Muslim that part of our community in Tempe here. We have been active or involved in all aspects of the city. And when I talk about the Arizona Muslim community, and in particular Arizona Muslim Police Advisory Board, we encompass Phoenix, Mesa, Tempe, and whatever we do with Phoenix or Mesa, we do it with other city, Chandler, Gilbert, and so forth. We trying to diffuse scenarios like what is happening right now by educating the police department on cultural aspect of the Muslim community. We're trying to partnership with them and provide all of the help and we offer our help in translation, in cultural diversity training, in language barriers with some of the community. So we are available to do whatever it takes to create that harmony between the community and the police department. I know Phoenix Police Department is part of, Mesa Police Department, and I work with the Mesa Police Department from the time that Mr. Frank Milstead was the chief, and continue since then with all of the chiefs that came after him, all the way to Chief Cox. Basically, we were trying to offer our assistance to any community that is needing to understand what we all about. This is one thing. Our board is one of many organizations or many boards that's available. As far as with the COVID-19, what it did to the Muslim community, every year we have what we considered to be the holiest month of the year. We call it Ramadan, and we fast from sunrise to sunset. And at the sunset, we have the gathering where we enjoy community feeds and everybody get together and we eat. And because of this year, we could not do that. So what we have done, the Muslim community partnership with the Middle East, and we provided lunch to all the Valley Police Department. I myself hand deliver those lunches to Mesa, Chandler, Gilbert, to thank them for all of the work that they have been doing, as well as we did the same thing for the hospital and doctors and nurses. I wanted to come and join you and to tell Chief Cost and City of Mesa that we are there for you guys to assist in any way we can. One of the things that we 100% agree on is we disagree completely with the defunding of the police department that some of the people are calling for, but we do ask for more transparency. We ask for giving some of the civilian role to have more involvement. I know that a few months ago, when, well, that was last year when Mesa was under attack by media about excessive use of force, and Chief Batista came in and he tried to do some changes, and the union actually didn't like that. So I think we need to have a body that will oversees the union and kind of make it less powerful, that they can dictate what the chief of the police and what the city of Mesa or any other cities can do with their policy or their training. So that's one of the things that I was going to bring to the chief of the police in the next meeting, is what can we do, how we can do that the chief of police will not be, and it wasn't just Mesa, because a few years before that, Chief Garcia in Phoenix also have the same same outcome from the police union, that make any changes impossible if they wanted to do that. So I would like to see somebody that, or buddy, that can be able to be involved in policing, because we want the police to go back to protect and serve. We wanted I'm using this as a with the Mesa PD now, since I am in this call, but I am going to be calling in all of the police department to help us understand what's going on.
Mohammed, if you don't mind, I'd like to go ahead and let our chief of police respond to those questions, if that's okay. Chief, would you like to respond to that?
Sure. Good to see you, Mohammed.
Thank you.
You know, there's a lot that we just talked about right there, but you know, I'll tell you, as far as I look forward to having a meeting with you and the other chiefs to talk about, you know, working with oversight and the unions and kind of how that looks, because it's a very complex issue. I will tell you, for Mesa, that the Fraternal Order of Police and the Mesa Police Association and our senior management are working very well together right now at this current time. We're on the same page. Things are going well. But there's obviously a lot within the police department that we can do for transparency, for positive change. And those are all conversations I'd be more than willing to have because I could go on and on. It's a very complex issue in that regard for what you're saying. And let me kind of rewind a little bit even from your statements, Mohammed, and how much we appreciate working with you in a collaborative environment. And that goes with every single person on this call and on this event right now. Deanna, what you said and what everybody says just gives such an awesome perspective from each one of the panelists. I sit here and I'm a sponge. I'm learning. I'm inspired all at the same time. And you talk about where do we go from here? You can't just be okay with what's happened in the past and rest on any laurels or hey, we've done this or we did this policy or we did this program. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to link arms and go hand in hand and work together. This is an opportunity to make substantial change and positive change. And I want to tell each one of the panelists that your police department in the city of Mesa is all in. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And so whatever we can do, whatever we've done in the past, that's great. But watch what we do in the future because we're all in with you. We're hand in hand. We're linking arms. And I can't wait to get to work.
So, Chief, I'd like to ask you about, in terms of diversity training, how are you going to work with your officers in providing that they understand diversity of our community, how to work with our community members? Obviously, we have a great representation here of many community members that have spoken about issues related to the Mesa Police Department. How do you plan to work with your police officers?
So, to work with our officers, it obviously starts before they walk in the door. It starts with recruiting and bringing the right folks in the door. So diversity it's a big deal to me. It's a big deal to my staff. We have numbers dating back for the last 6 years where the academies, the diversity rate is well over 40%. Diverse academies in substantially big academies for us, 30, 35 folks, 20 plus. To better represent what the city of Mesa community is. And Deanna, that's a great idea to post those numbers. You know, it's something that I'll talk to you even offline about how we can do that because we keep that kind of analysis. Mm-hmm. It's important to us that we do that. So then once they're in the door, what happens? We have the longest police academy in the state of Arizona and one of the longest in the entire country. And so we've increased our hours of communication, integration training, communication training from 12 to 45 hours. And we've also added implicit bias into our academy, both pre-academy, during the academy, and when you get out. So for continued officer education training, we have a rolling calendar where officers every 2 years will get a refresher on implicit bias, on fair and equitable policing, on diversity. And then lastly, we have a diversity team that has gone in about 3 or 4 or 5 different directions in my career, and it's basically being rebuilt as we speak. So Chief Dan Butler is in charge of that, and so that diversity team is within our organization to work with Andrea and the city of Mesa to make sure that we're all on the same page with the programs that we have for our officers. You know, we do an awful lot of humanity training and encouraging officers to understand that, you know, compassion, respect, empathy, you know, self-reflection, all of that is part of being a police officer. You know, those are all things that we bring in formal training, and we will track every single year. And it really doesn't matter who's in power, if you will, which chiefs in the station, which assistant chiefs are. Those are policies and procedures and a training plan that will be included from this point until I'm long gone. So, and all we can do is just build on that by our collaboration with the community and bringing them in to help us build these programs.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that comment. Now I'd like to toss it over to Andrea Reed, who can talk to us about the City of Mesas and their efforts related to diversity and inclusion.
Thank you, Councilmember Luna, and thank you again to the panelists that are here. I have enjoyed being able to listen to all of your perspectives and certainly applaud many of the sentiments that you have made and look forward to, quite honestly, having much deeper developing deeper and longer relationships as we move forward. So I'm going to go ahead and echo a little bit of what Chief Costa just stated, and touching on the question that was posed earlier in regards to metrics. Certainly, the first thing that we're beginning to tackle is that look within, and taking a look at our employee demographics, how we're able to support those within our own employment here, and being able to move up the ladder, finding clearer paths of elevating minorities within our organization, and recruiting. So all of that, luckily in my role right now, we've been able to develop a really great working relationship with HR, and that has been one of the priorities in the past 3 months that I've been in this position, is to really take a look at that. I look forward to being able to make that information more public and more accessible in the future. Part of the planning that we are also doing is definitely working towards the development of a diversity office strategic plan, but more importantly, a citywide diversity action plan. And all of those, to again comment on the sentiments that Deanna had stated, these are going to be developed over some time. Right now, it is the role and the duty of the city to stop and listen to the voices that are coming out right now. Certainly what we thought we knew even a couple of months ago, more people are willing to come forward right now and share their experiences and their perspectives, and it's our responsibility to listen. And so I look forward to being able to, again, have deeper, more meaningful conversations, to be able to make sure that the plans that we do put in place, as Chief Costa mentioned, regardless of whether I'm in the position or whomever's in the position, it'll be the role of every city employee to help ensure that we are achieving this goal. Part of our own employment values is knowledge, integrity, and respect. And certainly diversity fits overarching all of those. And so I do want to look into various trainings for our employees, being able to support employees to be able to have more conversations and be able to connect better with our community. I look forward to being able to implement new processes that becomes a standard within our city in order to connect, whether it's linguistically or accessibility, by making sure that all of our representation is there. Some folks that are not represented on this panel today include people with disabilities or those from our LGBTQ communities. And so we do have a due diligence to be able to make sure that we are connecting with all of Mesa representation. And again, looking forward to being able to work with those on this panel and others in the community to make sure that our outward community events are reflective of those. And so I certainly am grateful for the opportunity that I've been given in this position. I look forward to the work that we can achieve together, and certainly am looking forward to the growth that our city, our nation has at our feet right now.
Thank you, Andrea. I appreciate your comments, and we look forward to working with you in the future. And I'm sure our panelists here are eager as well to work with you, develop your strategies as you begin to move forward, as well as our police chief. Thank you so much for being here. I'd like to go ahead and thank Vic Reed, CEO from the Asian Chamber of Commerce, Ron Williams, Chairman of the Human Relations Advisory Board from the City of Mesa, Albert Puli, President and Founder of the Native American Association of Fatherhood and Families, Deanna Viano Salcedo, Chair of the Mesa Association of Hispanic Citizens, and Mohammed El-Shakawi, Chairman of the Arizona Muslim Police Advisory Board. We thank you so much for being part of this conversation. This conversation is not over. We hopefully plan to continue providing these kind of dialogues in the future. So we're looking forward to having more of these kind of programs, especially as we move forward in this community. So thank you for being part of our second series of Communities in Color, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you so much.